King of Podcasts proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast, a weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Thanks for joining me for another edition of Broadcasters Podcast. I had preempted this week's show a day in favor of Buccaneers football, which the Buccaneers lost on Thursday night. So, probably would have been better if I was doing the show here. I'm just saying. Anyway, tonight on the program, a lot of things going on. Rolling Stone talking about radio's Payola problem. We talked about this a few months back. And now we're learning about some texts that reveal that pay-for-play might still be going on in the game. We'll talk about that coming up. Also, the splintering of the radio industry, the issues that the pandemic have created, and what opportunities and what kind of obstacles have been put into place that are being talked about more. FCC is looking to go and get AM stations to go all digital. Journalism faces a crisis in trust. So we got that to go and talk about when it comes to how to fix journalism. We'll talk about that coming up. The Neiman Lab had a great story about that. And the shaking up of the music industry and how a company is starting to make the biggest changes to it, and how music has really changed because of the pandemic. We have a lot of number one debuts this year in the Hot 100. The way that the algorithms and all the methodology for Billboard has changed things up to find out what songs could be number one, and why you can see songs that are on TikTok or viral from other different places. How the music industry is getting shaken up, and how the music industry is changing things up because of the way the Billboard chart works, because that is the important thing that people look at. And also studios looking to outrun coronavirus by kicking blockbusters down the road, because we did learn how more movies are getting pushed back. We learned that Regal cinemas are officially closing now indefinitely. So my movie theater has been closed. Subscription is indefinitely suspended. So I don't have any movies to go to, but AMC and Cinemark theaters are going to remain open and try to continue to make some kind of money throughout the duration without any significant movies going on right now new to look at. So we'll look at also what's going on with the release schedule, if there's anything coming out worthwhile to keep people interested in going to the movies, because it's becoming tough right now. New York and California still don't have their movies open, but we'll talk all about that coming up in a little bit. The meantime, let's go and move along into this week's show and talk about the feature story that really got me looking again. I'm always paying attention to this. This happened a couple of days ago. Special report from RollingStone.com that really got my attention. Go ahead and look for it. It's in the description. All the links to all the things that I'll be talking about here on the program, you can find on my Facebook page at King of Podcasts, or my Twitter feed at King of Podcasts, or find on the website broadcasterspodcast.com. Again, that's broadcasterspodcast.com. Now, one more thing before we get started. As I record tonight, this weekend, coming into Tuesday rather, October the 13th, I talked about this on a number of different series. I believe I talked about it on one of my Broadcasters podcasts last week. I'm going to rewind it one more time. KingofAmazon.com. That is a special website that I have of my own that leads you right into Amazon. And I want you to use KingofAmazon.com this October 13th and 14th for Amazon Prime Day. It's your chance to get your hands on some great Amazon merchandise, from Fire Sticks to Echoes to Taps to whatever you need. If you need Kindles, if you want Amazon Prime subscriptions with extra perks to it, an Audible subscription, whatever you might want. You want to go to Amazon Prime Day through Amazon through my link, KingofAmazon.com. Again, KingofAmazon.com. That's where you want to go and check all that out. And I really implore you to go and do that. Help me out, because that's the best way to help out the show. Obviously, I put some ads in here on the show on a regular basis so that it will help to support the show. But I can always use more to help support. And so I'm looking out for all of you, my listeners, to help out with this. Again, the easiest way to help out the show, I'm not asking you to set up a Patreon link and subscribe to it to put out premium content. All my content's for free. I don't ask for donations to PayPal or anything like that. I have a PayPal link if you want it, but nobody's going to put it in there. I'd rather you get something for what you get. And I'd rather just be the salesman for Amazon and get a commission off what I make. So please go kingofamazon.com. Again, kingofamazon.com, especially this October 13th and October 14th for Amazon Prime Day. It's a great way to help out this show. Rolling Stone. Pay for play was banned from radio, but texts reveal it may still be thriving. So Rolling Stone obtained 2,500 text messages that were suggesting a link between airplay and record label payments. So let's get into the story. It's very interesting, and we'll obviously interject in between. So they take us starting off. The Last Light writes the story. I believe I wrote the last time about this. June 2019, Mitch Mills, he's senior vice president of radio promotion at Elektra Records. He sent a text to Steve Zapp, an independent radio promoter who works for a number of stations in the adult contemporary format. They've texted each other periodically about Warner Music Group acts, including Panic at the Disco, 21 Pilots, and Fitz and the Tantrums. The text shows that Mills was worried about Panic at the Disco because they were receiving fewer plays than they had the previous week on a station, Zapp over Stahl. Stevie, down 11 in Panic. I just did a 2K deal with you. I need Panic back up. So what they're saying right there is that Mitch Mills spent $2,000 in order to get more spins of Panic at the Disco, which most likely was either High Hopes or Look Ma, I Made It. Right? Those songs were prominently on the chart. And Brendan Urie is in his solo version of Panic at the Disco because the rest of the group is no longer part of this. They were trying to keep that song prominent and getting it on the AC stations. Because Panic at the Disco not necessarily is a streaming band as they are more of a radio and sales band. So that was the idea. The text is one of more of 2,500 messages involving Zapp that have been obtained by Rolling Stone, covering from 2018 to July of 2020. They refer to conversations with major label executives about promotional giveaways and payments to a radio station in connection with airplay, practices that have been supposedly been banned. Now, it's much more prominent than it was before, because the idea is, back in the day, you had physical units, and the communication between the promoters and the talent that would be playing the records was normally between the DJs who had autonomy over the music, and then the unit of music would have a significant amount of money or something inside of it, inside a record sleeve or cassette tape or CD cover, whatever, jewel case. You would have these constant different things that would go on in order to go ahead and compensate for somebody for that extra boost in promotion. Especially if you had a DJ or a station that you wanted to make sure that the music was put on. So for Steve Zapp, an independent radio promoter working for the number of stations in AC, this guy's a consultant. Or like this, providing a service to program and consult stations. Right? So there's all that going on. So again, practices have been supposedly been banned. Some of the activity described in the correspondent echoes behavior that originally led former New York Attorney General Eliot Spitzer to investigate the major labels beginning in 2004. Now, record labels endeavor. Now, here's the thing. I want to go back to a story that was brought before the original part. So back in September 2019, I brought this story up about the Payola. And they had mentioned that there were money or goods being passed from the record labels to the radio stations to influence airplay, primarily funneled through intermediaries known as independent promoters or indies. Indies form a relationship with stations to administer the pay-for-play programs and enable the labels to engage in pay-for-play without direct transfer of funds or goods to the stations, blurring or concealing the actual nature of the transaction. So again, intermediaries, right there. That's what they were talking about. That's the story that Elias Light wrote about in September 10, 2019 in Rolling Stone. Now, back to current day. Zapp is a music industry veteran, worked early as 1986 for Virgin Records, becoming vice president of promotions for Warner Brother Records and MZA Records. 2004, started a management and promotion company called Z Entertainment, spawning a record label of the same name in 2011 and his label Art Beats in 2015. Known for his power in the hot AC format, think non-threatening pop, he worked with Aaron Carter and the pop singer Daya, known for her 2015 hit Hideaway. And Daya also did a couple other songs. You might remember the song with the Chainsmokers, Don't Let Me Down. She was also part of that. Texts show that the record labels routinely seek to influence the level of radio play to achieve specific chart goals for their artists, which in and of itself would raise no issues. But his messages also explicitly referred to payments in money or goods to radio in connection with airplay. His text would discuss paying or billing for radio play, either when a song is added to a station's playlist or when a song's spin count is increased. We already know there is manipulation on the media-based charts. There's more honor in streaming because the public is actually controlling the amount of spins on YouTube or Spotify or Pandora or Apple or Amazon Music. As we know, the audience has very little input into the callbacks, into what songs get played on the radio. We already talked about many times here on this program how radio, if you're an artist, local artist, whatever it is, you might get a song played. Back in the day, you could get a local artist played on the radio into the format of a station if the money was right and it would fit and it would make sense. And that's how a lot of local songs made it onto regional radio and then become national hits. A lot of songs got bought onto the radio. I watched, some of the stories of the Top of the Pops. They talked about how songs would get onto the top 75 of the official charts and how they would go ahead and buy songs because they knew there were 100 record shops that would sell the records. And so you would buy the records to amplify their performance. So people would actually go ahead, fellow musicians, record labels, and other people, pluggers, A&R types, they would buy the records to amplify sales. And they would normally know which places to go. So let's get back to Steve Zapp. In a March 2019 text from Zapp to a radio station employee, he wrote, quote, "Tell me when you move stuff up. I could have built on Khalid and Backstreet Boys moving up. That month he had a pair of singles in the hot AC chart. Backstreet Boys had the song No Place hovering outside the top 20. Now, texts show no evidence that any artists who rarely run their own radio campaigns were communicating with Zapp or involved in any negotiations with radio stations. So again, they're making the point that the artists, the record labels probably knew what was going on because they were connecting to this middleman so they could still do this payola. But the artists had no idea what was going on here. But they probably know that there's some nefarious things that were being done by the label. They would have to do some shady shit in order to get their music pushed up if it wasn't performing organically. See, the difference is, it's very important. There are a lot of songs on the radio now. The reason they might go up and actually perform well is if they are established artists. Or if they're established artists and they have a song that underperforms, they're going to get bought into the chart. And you can see that a lot of places. I am not going to say who did it. I'm only going to guess. And I am a layman here, just guessing for the back. When I look at the media-based chart, the top 50, okay? And I look at the songs that are on here. Okay, right off the bat. So there's a lot of streaming songs that are here, and the reason some of the streaming songs are making their way through is because of the fact that the streaming is working. And I talked last week about Sean Ross Sapp's article about how there are some enterprise DJs. And by the way, listen to that Z103 station in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's actually pretty good. So they mix some gold recurrence, just a couple of songs per hour, but they definitely do keep in touch with songs they think would work well from the streaming charts that are already on the top of the streaming charts right now. So that's what they're doing, and that's pretty smart. But this is also smaller markets. Idaho Falls is not a big market. You can't do that in some markets. So there's certain things that would happen. So why there would be certain songs that will make their way into the charts is because of their popularity, of who they are. Okay? Let me put it to you like this. In the media-based charts right now, the main media-based top 40 chart for the week of October 9th, it just listed today. In here, Machine Gun Kelly, MGK, just put out a new album, and My Ex's Best Friend, which is the lead single, has increased 400%. Another song that just got added increasingly is Dua Lipa, who already has a track record with New Rules and the new album, and the album earlier this year, Future Nostalgia, where Don't Start Now and Break My Heart perform well. The song now Levitating, which is the Blessed Madonna remix, the remix of the song, which did not perform well as a standalone single from Future Nostalgia. Well, it includes Madonna and it includes Missy Elliott. So this song might have been bought its way in. Interscope Warner runs it. The song has now increased 2,578.6%. 28 spins across stations last week, now 750. What? The song was 103 on this media-based chart, outside of the top 50. And now it's number 43. It went up 60 points. That song didn't just automatically just get streaming like that. Okay? If you look at the Billboard charts, it's not even like that now. Like, I'm guaranteeing you, like, that song, at this moment, I guarantee you, it's not even that high up on the chart. If I look at the Hot 100 as we speak, it's not even that high. The week ending October 10th, the Hot 100. If I look at this chart right now, I can tell you that song is not even on the chart. It's not even here. Why would it be? Right? You got to make that point across. The song now, in the media-based chart, the radio-manipulated chart, radio stations playing, that song goes up 60 points. For what? It's not in streaming. I mean, if I looked for the YouTube video to see how it was playing, I mean, ask yourself that. That song got put out on YouTube, and at the moment, I'll tell you right now, has 19 million views, and that's since August 14th. So it's not like it was been necessarily been pushing big time, okay? It wasn't that. Therefore, this song is manipulated. On the radio chart, it's because somebody pushed it up there. Whether it was internally through the record label, putting a lot of promotion behind the record to get it up there, but the promotion can only do so much. I wouldn't be surprised if the song was being manipulated through top 40 and somebody was buying their way up there. It doesn't go up 2,578% just like that. So MGK and Black Bear, that's a streaming song, and it went from 54 spins to 269. 400% increase. That is streaming. That is because of stations that are enterprise, which means they're trying to open up and trying to draw in the streaming numbers. They're trying to tap into the streaming audience because they need to start catching up with the time. Some stations will not do that because they're stuck to the system. This is the Payola system that is making radio stations hurt across the board so that only older format stations can do well, but not these stations. Another one, which was bought into the chart, Avenue Beat F 2020. That song is not even on the Hot 100. I don't think it ever made it on the Hot 100. Therefore, that song last week, 1,584 spins, now down 642, 60% decrease. It just fell just like that. Okay? Madison Beer and Baby. Okay, Madison Beer, she has not been featured on any record that has ever made it as a top single. She's been in the space for a long time. She's a good-looking girl. She sings well, but she kind of has a fit to other artists out there, more like an Ariana Grande type, right? But the thing is, that song is being bought in, I believe. Because the song, all of a sudden, 29% increase. Why don't we? It's a boy band. And I forget if it's in England or not. And all of a sudden, that song got from no spins to 578. It got up from nowhere to number 46. And Atlantic Records holds that artist. And now all of a sudden, here we go. We're trying to increase, trying to get some interest in them songs. Now, Cardi B and WAP, part of it might be a bit of a resistance to play a song so graphic. But the song is number 48. And so it's a high streaming song. It's still number one on the Global 200. It's still a top 5 song around the world. But yet radio in the U.S. will not be playing it. Not as much. And maybe it's just only because it's supposed to be settled to a certain format. But in the mainstream, this song is a mainstream song. It's a top 5 hit. It was number of weeks at number 1. But this song doesn't get played up there. Now moving along. Dana Shea should probably go to bed. It's a crossover from country. Tate McRae, You Broke Me First. That song just moved to top 10 now in the UK. The song on the Hot 100 right now, it sits 63 at its highest peak at this point. But the song, basically, she's a Canadian artist, and her song drew better in England and in Canada than it did here. So she's doing better worldwide, but the streaming is not so big here yet, but it's starting to grow. She has only gone up in the 6 weeks she's been around. I think she went down a little bit, but then started going back up. So she's starting to get traction. So Tate McRae, number 41 here. Now, one song that got added into the chart pretty quickly was Travis Scott and Franchise. The reason why he is because the song Sicko Mode performed so well last year alongside Drake. And because of that, they put him right up there. This song, The Scotts, also got pushed up and got a little bit of push. And that's what happened. Some songs that are organic, I think Conan Gray and Heather. That's a song that's making its way up. It's in the middle of the chart, and it's doing very well in streaming. It's getting obviously some sales. It's making its way up. Zara Larsson and Wow. The song's getting over 1,000 spins now on stations. Nowhere to be found on the Hot 100 or any global charts. I never seen it. There's a number of Zara Larsson songs that have been like that. Bebe Rexha, same thing. Sabrina Carpenter, same thing. It's what happens. Some songs do make their way up, and they are streaming well. Jack Harlow, Was Poppin', Saweetie, Tap In, Chris Brown, Go Crazy, DJ Khaled, Pop Star. Then we move up to Zoe's and Control. It's not even on the chart. I think it just didn't even make it to the chart yet. No. It's not streaming at all. It's not made its way up. So Zoe's Control, this is like one of the, I forget where she came from. It was an American Idol or something like that. But she came from a reality show and made her way here. Shawn Mendes and Wonder. Brand new song. And as far as I know, the song did enter the chart. But it wasn't as high as you would think. I think it made it to the middle of the chart. I'm trying to look where it was again. But you're talking about Shawn Mendes, who has been on the chart a number of times. Very popular, notable artist. You know, he's attached to Camila Cabello, all that good stuff. Song's not even on the Hot 100 yet. But that's also a new song that has not entered because it did not enter during the chart period. But on this October 9th media-based chart, which is the one that America Top 40 will probably follow, for the most part, that song instantly gets from no spins to 2,205 spins. So because he's an established artist, and you have songs like Treat Me Better and Senorita and others like that, his push goes immediately all the way up. Stitches, that was another song he did. So Wonder automatically goes all the way up 2,205 points. That's how many spins he has right now, all the way up to number 27. Just like that. Who's to say that song wasn't brought up on the chart? And the song might not be great, but it did make it. In the UK, of course, he's popular over there. So his song did go up on the chart. I think it was somewhere in the middle of the chart. Might have been top 20. But again, same thing goes here. Then you move up. And there's songs, I also feel like the same thing. There's some songs that, again, you can see some of the chart. It's because of the streaming. There's actually some radio stations that are actually trying to play along. And, they're trying to be following with the times, because if they just keep playing the same songs that have been streaming for 12 weeks, 15 weeks already, and they're bringing them on, there's something wrong. But you can tell which songs make it the radio that are not streamable at all, that don't have any kind of streaming ability. And then some of them do stream a little bit and then go down, but radio then props them back up. Surf Mesa, ILY, I Love You Baby, featuring Emily. It performed well in the UK and around Europe, but the song, I don't think ever made it that high on the chart in the US. Again, streaming numbers in the US, it's never been that big a deal. Currently number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100, 19 weeks on. So it's had some streaming, and so it's got a little bit of push, but that's radio play. That's what's pushing it up to that spot. Because Surf Mesa right now is number 7 on radio. And then, the rest of the chart, you can, and here's the other thing too, most important. I also noticed in the methodology is that with Media Base, the songs that you see here, they're never at the top of the chart where they can be really recognized, okay? Because when you look at that top 10 of the songs that are here, it more or less stays around, the performance of the streaming as well. So when you're looking at Dua Lipa, Break My Heart, If the World's Ending, JP Saxon, Julia Michaels, Mood, 24K Golden, Surf Mesa, IOY, that's an iffy song to make it that high up the chart. Gabby Barrett, I Hope, it's a top 10 song right now in streaming. Weekend Blinding Lights, that's been a perennial. That might be a number 1 song of the year, or at least a top 5. I think that and Say So are going to be fighting with Watermelon Sugar for number 1 song of 2020. Just saying. The Baby Rock Star, Roddy Ricch, that's been streaming like crazy. That was a TikTok favorite over the summer. Louis Capaldi, Before You Go, that's just a matter of an artist that was just gangbusters in the UK, where he came from in the United Kingdom. Crossed over here. A lot of AC stations playing the hell out of that song. Same thing for Top 40. Harry Styles, Watermelon Sugar, that's just been pushed so much by Columbia. And Josh 685, Jason Derulo, Savage Love is now your number 1 song. I guess that's what it's going to be when they, put out American Top 40 this weekend. We'll see. But again, the top songs, you're not going to see the payola possibilities. You're going to see it more in the mid chart or the bottom of the chart, because they just need to make it to the chart so they have a chance to get noticed and get brought up. So you have to look at what songs are getting brought in all of a sudden, like Zedd and Jasmine Thompson. There's a song they have. It's been in the lower end of the chart, and for what? Like it's not been streaming anywhere. Nobody's really been into it. And those kind of songs, that's what happens to them. So how do they get up there? Because the radio allows it to be manipulated. Okay, back into the story. Now, remember we talked about, back in September 2019, when I first talked about the Rolling Stone article, they talked about Payola, where when did they start playing the songs? Like if they were not played during the daytime because it would not fit the format, you would pad the overnight hours with songs that were not familiar. Because no one would be really paying attention, but it would count towards the spins, towards Media Base. That was the idea. So Zap would charge for plays in the overnight slot between midnight and 6 a.m. when few listeners are tuned in. April 2019, there was a song called Gasoline, a somber ballad from the English brother-sister trio The Rua, moving up the top 30 on the Hot AC chart. Zap texted, please put Rua into 50-spin rotation. Just for 6 weeks, I can use the billing. Mostly nights and overnights, of course. This is how we'll get the bills paid until we make money. So again, this was to try to go ahead and manipulate the chart for a song that nobody's listening to, which got no other traction from any other viral areas, no streaming, nothing for video, nothing for Shazam, nothing like that. So there was a song from Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day, his cover of I Think We're Alone Now, climbing the radio chart in May. Zap intervened at the radio station because playing the song was, quote, not paying bills. And the text from the promoter included the instruction, Billy Joe needs to go down. I didn't even know he had the song. So a song that was organically getting traction was being bought to be brought down. Isn't that fucked up? In a statement of Rolling Stone, Zap vehemently denied any wrongdoing and claimed that the texts were provided by a former employee motivated by the recent loss of his job. The promoter says he worked hard to help young musicians become better known in the music industry. As part of that work, he says, quote, I try to sell radio station program directors on the merits of my clients' music and to make friends with program directors at various stations, always within legal bounds, end quote. In a statement to Rolling Stone, each of the three major label groups claimed they have safeguards in place to ensure that their radio promotions departments abide by their settlements with the New York Attorney General's office. Now, moving along, they tell the story about how the record labels are all doing what they need to do. They're up, they are on the level. Then we move along to a section called We Need Beat Swag. So there are third-party independent promoters that push songs to radio. These promoters are frequently compared to consultants or lobbyists for hire who leverage their relationships with specific program directors to try to convince them to add a song to their playlist. So in the corporate sense, the relationships are allowed under the radar without anybody knowing about it. They just let it happen. And then corporate gets a cut through this independent consultant, lobbyist, if you will. Because everybody's getting paid from doing this kind of racket. Let's just make it as it is. There was messages he had to one radio station he had with link promotions to playlist ads or increased airplay. In November 2018, he texted a station employee, quote, any way to move 5 seconds of summer to superpower till Saturday, which means we need 5 seconds of summer to be played as one of the top 5 songs on your station. 100 to 115 spins an hour. Now, what song could that have been? Could it have been Youngblood? Could it have been Teeth? I don't know. I believe it would have been Youngblood. And they said, in return, I will get a great promo for you. Sometimes the texts were more specific about the nature of the promo that Zap was promising, and he can link the goods to exact the spin level for a given song. Quote, can we do Flora Cash and Khalid? Referring to the pop duo and R&B singer. Promise them 35 spins each. Will cover that cash giveaway. Michael Franti to 35 spins. Getting free show. So again, we're talking about, so like say Khalid's song Talk, which might not have pushed that much on the chart 2018, 2019. Or better, that got pushed much longer on radio than it would have been for the streaming because the Khalid songs don't have that much push. Because they don't have that kind of, like some of the Khalid songs, they might get some streaming, but they don't have a lasting power to them. So they come up, come down. But radio, because of his previous performance, they'll keep him up there. Right? August 2019, a text from Zap asked, can we move Ellie Goulding to study 40 spins a week, ex-ambassadors, to start 5 a day? We need beat swag. So again, you might get a free show from the artist. They'll perform for like a private audience if they're coming into town. Or you have a cash giveaway that you're doing, and the record label is fronting the cash. Yep. One station increased the number of plays on a song by LSD, the electronic trio of Labyrinth, Sia, and Diplo. Labyrinth, right now, you're hearing the song "You Don't Know My Name" from the song from the show Euphoria on HBO. Sia, Cheap Thrills, and Diplo, you've heard a lot of songs with, feature with other artists. And it was being worked by Columbia Records. Zap's texts confirmed the promotional award for the station. I just got you a 1,000 promo through Columbia. Tell me what you need for stations they will cover. So $1,000 promo. $1,000 in promo money. Tell me what you need for stations they will cover. Just to get certain songs played out there. For increasing number of plays for a song by LSD. Yep. Another one you have, in February, there was a song from Dean Lewis, a song called Be Alright. Song performed very well in the UK. UK artist. They brought him into the States. That song never made it that high up on the chart here in the US. But radio promoted it. How did that work? February 2019, Dean Lewis was in the top 10 on the Hot AC chart with Be Alright. Quote, "Can you make sure Dean Lewis doesn't get killed? We did a promo to move up last week. It's down -15. So they on purpose increased the spins for the record to get something for it. How about Lovely the Band? Zap sent a text message about the LA pop group Lovely the Band, the song called Broken. Not that broken like me. Tell me I'm playing a fool. Right, that song. He wrote, quote, "Make sure we kill Lovely the Band till Saturday. 5 seconds of summer, 4 spins away from 1. We already did the promo and they covered." So again, these stations were going to play these songs. Broken was on the chart on America Top 40 for like almost like a full year. Okay? And that song went off the chart a long time ago. And it went on the chart late. Remember, it got on the media base chart late. Well after the song had its run on streaming, it got viral up for a little bit and down. It wasn't even up that high. But Broken got played much longer than it did. One hit wonder, by the way. I don't think we've heard anything else from Lovely the Band. And Zap would say that, I am well aware of the applicable rules. I've observed them carefully with my work as an indie promoter. I do not dispute that I asked the station to play certain records on various occasions. In addition, I supplied the station with certain promotional support from time to time. However, this would only cross the line if a particular level of support were conditioned on specific instances of airplay beyond what the station would otherwise schedule because of specific benefits supplied to the stations or to a program director personally. This is damning stuff. You must admit. Just saying. Zap also instructed the station he worked with to take place from artists such as Panic! At the Disco and Maren Morrison in an effort to boost Marshmello, Halsey, and Dua Lipa. So Panic! At the Disco probably could have been High Hopes, or Hey Look Ma, I Made It, or Maren Morrison's, The Middle with Zed. Those songs might have been brought down in spins, but they were so hot in order to let Marshmello, which I'm guessing that was a song with, the song with Bastille, Happier. That was the song they were trying to get to number 1, right? That's the song. Halsey, Without Me, was probably the song they were trying to get high up, which it took a while. I mean, it performed very well, but Halsey, Without Me, stretched out for a long time after its viral appeal. It was very interesting. And then Dua Lipa was also included in that mix. Also, Zap instructed the station on one occasion that he worked with to reduce plays for the Jonas Brothers to help Pink and the song Sucker by the Jonas Brothers. The Pink song would have been Take Me Home in 2019. Take me home to the end of the night. It went up and went up down. And Pink is an established artist that doesn't get the songs that really hit up that high. It doesn't make a big push up. 14 days later, he asked the same station to take away place from Pink to benefit another artist. He wrote, quote, "Everyone's so desperate and sad at labels. Let's pull down Pink and Kelly Clarkson." August 2019, another one. This week killed Panic and Ed Sheeran and Sean Superpower for number one. Here's the song that we're talking about there. Ed Sheeran would have been Shape of You or Perfect. That would have been played at this point. I'm guessing it was Shape of You. Republic Records is sweating me already. On the previous week's chart, it was Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber's I Don't Care, which performed well, but stretched out long on radio, was number one. Shawn Mendes' If I Can't Have You, number 3. The idea was that song was totally pushed by radio, because Shawn Mendes' If I Can't Have You was a weaker song than some of the other songs. So this weaker single to push up, radio had to help promote it. And then Hey Look Ma, I Made It, Disco was number 4, Panic! At the Disco. And then the charts tracking week near its end, the station told Zapp that Mendes' single was set to play every half hour. And then Zapp fired off another text. It is too close and we haven't even jumped Ed yet after 8 p.m. Can we do every 15 minutes? No one will even notice. No one listen to this. No one listens to the radio unless in car. Then Mendes would leapfrog Ed Sheeran on the media-based chart and hit number 1. And I remember the American Top 40 chart at the time. Shawn Mendes' If I Can't Have You did jump over Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber's I Don't Care to become number 1. Mm-hmm. I kind of remember it was really weird to see that happen. But yeah. Incredible. This is why radio is so bad. Let me move on to another thing here. And I'm starting running out of time. Jesus, I went 40 some odd minutes with this. I didn't think I was going to go so long. But hey, what an interesting subject. This is at the heart of things. This is a problem with radio. And I'm doing this because there are content creators. There are musicians out there. There is radio out there. When you talk about systemic institutional injustices, that radio is doing what they're doing. And all of a sudden, you wonder why radio is so screwed up? Because of this. It's exactly why. So, Radio Inc. wrote a story about the splintering of the radio industry. And again, all the problems with radio. And radio could be so serviceable for so many different things. We already talked about that last week as well. So at Radio Show, virtually this year, there were 3 radio CEOs that discussed the pandemic and how it has driven a deeper wedge, even deeper, between the big 3 radio companies, iHeart, Entercom, and Cumulus, trying to sell at scale, and smaller groups doubling down on being local. So the radio companies selling at scale, that means that the radio stations iHeart, Entercom, and Cumulus they're now selling ads just to keep the lights on. They're not making any money at all. And the smaller groups are trying to become more local to counteract against the homogenized national branded programming of iHeart, Entercom, and Cumulus. One of the CEOs talked about that the unfortunate truth is that a lot of moves the companies made to survive will make it more difficult for them to staff local operations, which I think is the future of our business. Some companies will be kicking the can down the road, unable to invest in their own operations, and it will be increasingly difficult for them to invest in growth. Why do these companies have these stations and they're owning them in the first place if they can't grow them? Like, what kind of a business are you if you can't grow your business? Another CEO said, quote, as more companies go to a hub and spoke programming model, there's going to be a bigger, wider divide with the bigger companies relying on the national footprint and exploiting that. And those of us that are truly local are going to double down on it to the greatest degree possible. That's going to create alternatives for advertisers. That distinction is going to come into sharper focus in the coming months. So again, you want the smaller stations that are going local, they're going to counter-program the homogenized national footprint. because they don't have the resources or the manpower in these individual stations to get some pushed out there. That's the whole point. Another CEO said that, quote, "We knew that regardless of how we were impacted from a business standpoint, there was a time that our communities really needed us. They needed to be told how things were going. They needed to be heard. Government officials needed a place to talk and how they thought things were going." And so there was, the fact that local programming throughout the years, the time their licenses, obligations were really put to the test. Becoming less local over the years, we had never been able to step up. We really believe that local is important. Really believe that our people are what makes us special, and also do the service and only as last resorts that we make personnel cuts, and we made them as shallow as we could. There you go. Radio is so broken. It's so bad. You want to talk about where opportunities can be had? Radio is it. And it's not just podcasting, because radio could do something more with itself. They could actually make a difference in the communities they serve. They talk about opportunity zones. Radio is an opportunity zone. Do you want to have voices to be heard, whichever opinions you might have? They shouldn't have to buy airtime on a bad station. They should be able to go and get airtime on a station they can get. But the truth is, some of these stations should be able to get the money they have to go ahead and buy some of these stations out so they have a constant voice they can program from. And then maybe we don't need so many protests on the streets. And maybe we don't have the lack of information that goes out there so that people will not feel like they need to have something with a national footprint, like a news organization, to find out what's going on in their world. That I can actually find out from people that are in the community. And they might not even have to do the news where they are reporting it themselves. They could actually rely on the listeners to get factual information, and then they double check it, and they verify the information. Report and verify. Why can't we do that? Why can't radio do that? That's where I'm coming from with that. Okay, moving along here. I want to get into InsideRadio.com, quick story. SEC is closing in on all digital AM. SEC voted last November to advance the proposal. Not just to examine the market penetration of digital receivers, but also impact the move that would have on Americans with analog-only radios. Adopting technical standards for all digital AM stations, such as cover issues of power, nighttime operations, and code channel interference. The idea is you'd have more radio stations that would sound clear, so that AM would actually have a reason to be back on. And then you would have more stations to occupy, more stations to let on the air, because the AM stations are operated by local operators for the most part, and a lot of small-time local operators. If you're allowed to go digital, and they just have to make a significant modification, then those stations can then stand out. And they can be heard by others. That sounds great. Just saying. These are the kind of things we want. Radio has room. Nobody talks about radio, but radio could have a purpose again. But it's falling on deaf ears, of course, because I'm here and nobody's talking about it. Just me. Two more stories I want to talk about before we wrap things up. The shaking of the music industry itself. Because of the corruption among the payola that goes on with radio stations, music is not going that route all the time. Only certain large artists are doing that, okay? Complex.com put out a recent story about how a wildly ambitious company called Hipgnosis, Hipgnosis, is shaking up the music industry. Mercuriadis, he wants to disrupt the music publishing industry so completely that it ceases to exist in its current capacity. Turning the focus from song creation to song management. So he has created the Hipgnosis Songs Fund, aimed to frame music royalties as an asset class, not unlike gold or silver. They're a publicly traded company on the UK stock market, the FTSE. They're eyeing Wall Street in the next 18 months. Kanye West calls this guy one of the most powerful and knowledgeable people in music. So they want to get rich, but he also wants it for his artists and for you too. Difference, though, between music as an investable asset and anything else is that songs are more stable simply because music is the most predictable commodity available. So, this Hypnosis company, they own 50% of RZA's catalog, one portion of the Wu-Tang Clan. RZA was a co-writer on so many Wu-Tang solo albums, and they'll be seeing money from the catalogs of artists like ODB, Raekwon, and GZA, all Wu-Tang artists. The group has made the other forays into the hip-hop world, including buying 100% of No ID's catalog, 100% of writing shares. As for Hypnosis is undisclosed and presumably large investment, they'll now receive the income every time a song with No ID credit appears in a film or on TV. And so what makes them different from other companies is that Kanye West and Megan Thee Stallion spoke out against leveraging labels when offering artists rich advances in favor of masters or control. So Hypnosis, you look at, hold on, but Merck, you buy these rights from songwriters and artists and producers, so are you sure you got this right? His response is absolutely, because I only buy from artists and songwriters and producers. By focusing on artists that retain the rights to the music. He envisions Hypnosis as a vehicle of empowerment. The great work already exists, and he views his team as a mechanism to greater profit. Quote, these are the houses the artists built and paid for, and therefore, if they choose to sell their house, that's on them. I'm empowering them when I write them a check, and I'm empowering them when I go after improving their place in the economic equation. I don't buy from corporations. I buy from the songwriter. I love that. The autonomy goes back to the creator. This guy just comes in, makes music a commodity. I think it's a great move. So their path is to keep buying, keep improving industry power, and keep investing. They have staff located in the States. In the next 18 months or so, Merck aims to focus this company's ambitions towards the American market. Mercuriadis began in the UK because the culture is bent towards music discovery, with BBC Radio 1 focusing entirely on new music. So discovery is done almost exclusively through streaming in a very passive way. He wanted to capture more fervous, rapturous consumption of music across the pond before marketing his company in the U.S. Quote, our agenda is to put the artist, the producer, and the songwriter at the forefront of everyone's cortex. We want to use the leverage of our financial wherewithal and our great songs to change where the songwriter and artist sit in the economic equation. It's very important what we're doing. This is a game changer. Because if this happens, that independent promoter, Steve Zapp, right there, the labels and the artists have control back. Keep that in mind. There's a lot of money to be said. We already know the fight between the Music Modernization Act, the AM/FM Act, and other things that are being put out there by policymakers to make sure royalties go somewhere. But if this guy comes into play and is able to create something big in terms of marketing in the U.S., and has the ear and the investment of the songwriters and the producers and the artists, game over. Then radio will have to go ahead and go to him to interpret what songs will be done. Because he'll have a lot of pull. Keep that in mind, folks. Very important right there. One other story I want to talk about before I wrap things up. I won't have time to talk about everything I was going to talk about tonight, but that's okay. I normally have that happen, right? Okay, one more story we're going to talk about is the Billboard Hot 100 has gone through and had a number of number one songs. Very interesting. So in this article, we have a new number one song on the Billboard Hot 100. It's Franchise by Travis Scott featuring Young Thug and MIA. It's third song to debut at number one on the Hot 100, but it's also one that came up out of nowhere that debuted at number one. Highest in the Room debuted at number one. The Scotts debuted at number one, just like that. But it doesn't stay up there for a long time. But this is the whole point. Now, here's the methodology that comes into play. So, for the first of the 37 years of the Hot 100, dating back to 1958, no songs debuted at number one on the chart. Now, 44 have. A one-year record, 9 of those top spot entrances over 20%. Since Drake's Toosie Slide debuted on top in April, 4 of the last 13 new number one hits were hits that didn't even debut at number one. The rest, Tootsie, the Scots, Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber, Stuck With You, Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande's Rain On Me, and Nicki Minaj's Trolls with 6ix9ine, and Taylor Swift's Cardigan. You also have Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's WAP, BTS's Dynamite, and Now Franchise. All got a gradual climb of the chart. They all left the gradual climb of the chart and never even climbed. They just got to the apex in the first week. Why is this trend making it so that the number one debut is now so more of a rule than exception? Well, they say it's important to remember the number one bows have always come in waves in the Hot 100, usually corresponding with the methodological changes in the charts or within the industry. Andrew Unterberger writes about this. So to begin with, the seal was broken on the number one debut all the way at number one without a climb. That would have been 1995's Michael Jackson's You Are Not Alone. There were 10 number one debuts between 1995 and 1998. Not simply because they were suddenly that many instantly massive chart-something smashes, but because labels began to realize they could make more of an impact by waiting to release a physical single of a song. Once they've accumulated enough airplay, a once-week sales boost, maximized by pent-up demand by a delayed single release, could send a song straight to number one. And in the meantime, single sales wouldn't eat into more profitable sales of the song's parent album. The strategy only worked for a period until the rules for the Hot 100 stated that the song must have a physical single release to be eligible for the chart. In late 1998, those rules were done away with, allowing songs to chart on airplay and essentially eliminating number one debuts for nearly half a decade in the process. 2003 to 2006, 4 more songs would debut on the chart, 1 per year, roughly. All those debuts came from the debut single releases of the winners from the TV phenomenon American Idol. Artist debut singles released quickly after their crowning and drew such blockbuster sales that airplay was practically irrelevant in their chart placement. Moving in the story here, then it was a multi-year gap. Number one debuts until iTunes download numbers began to peak at the turn of the decade. Got 6 more anticipated new singles from superstar artists at number one between 2009 and 2012. Largely off digital sales and week one airplay. And this time, there was no long period between debuts since those iTunes downloads were starting to taper off at mid-decade. Streaming began to rise in its stead and was added in fuller force to the Hot 100 calculation. Once again, allowing songs by big-name artists to achieve mass consumption immediately. Since 2009, there hasn't been a single calendar year that at least not one song made it all the way up to number one right off the bat in the debut. Very interesting. Because of that methodology, that's why it makes it so hard for radio stations to kind of keep ahead. Because they can't keep up with the songs that are going up and down so much. So they manipulate it themselves. And that's where that comes down to. So we just talked about radio music tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I really went into the weeds with this, which was pretty detailed, but these are the kind of shows I love because I can talk about this for hours. So I had some other stories. I'm going to leave those for when I'm not podcasting series over the weekend. Journalism facing a crisis of trust. We'll talk about that on when I'm not podcasting. And I will also talk about the story I had about studios trying to outrun coronavirus by kicking blockbusters down the road. We'll talk about that on when I'm not podcasting. So look for those episodes on my channel. If you want to find out where to find out, you can go ahead and look for that at kingofpodcasts.com, where you can find all my shows. Or you can find a link to it at broadcasterspodcast.com. I have it there as well. And it's wherever you find your podcasts. But hosted by yours truly. I do out multiple episodes every week. They're usually between 5 and 15 minutes. I hope you'll enjoy them. And we're going to come back next week. I do have a guest I think I'm going to have put together, but I'm not going to put any information about that right away. But I do have a couple of guests that might be lined up that I'll be able to go and feature on the program before now and the end of the year. So we'll work on that as well. Anyway, let's leave it there. Thanks for joining me for another Broadcasters Podcast. Until next week, remember, content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast, presented by BroadcastersPodcast.com and KingofPodcasts.com. The Broadcasters Podcast is brought to you by kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. If Amazon is good enough for the King of Podcasts, it most certainly is good for you. kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program. The Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at kingofpodcasts.com.